The swing state of Wisconsin this past week, riding the Amtrak with Governor Tony Evers, touring several ports in Milwaukee, Manitowoc, and the Menominee Harbor. We'll acknowledge off the top you are here in your official capacity in Wisconsin, in your official capacity. We'll get to some news of the day as well, but I want to talk about your trip here to Wisconsin, spending several days in this key swing state. You're touring several ports, riding the Amtrak with Governor Tony Evers. Is this a sales pitch, so to speak, for your time in transportation now 3 months ahead of the election?
Well, a big part of my job is to get out from Washington, D.C. and see the places where these dollars from the Biden-Harris infrastructure package are making a difference. And so we've been visiting facilities of all kinds. Just within the port side of the bill alone, for example, a few days ago I was in Long Beach in California looking at the improvements we're making to the container ports there. That's great. But just as important are these Great Lakes ports that serve the agriculture and manufacturing economy here. And that's what's had me in the Upper Peninsula and then places like Manitowoc and today in Milwaukee.
Some of your critics, Republicans here in the state, have called this trip a taxpayer-funded audition to be vice president.
This trip was planned a long time ago. I've been to almost every state in the union, and just about every week I'm on the road because there are parts of my job you can't do from behind a desk.
Listen, Republicans will say you're out here, you're doing these tours, but you have failed to adequately address some of the major transportation issues during the Biden administration. I'm curious from your perspective, let's look at the airline industry, for example. Have you been successful in overseeing the FAA when we've seen delays and major chaos sometimes for passengers?
Well, what I would say is that we have overseen the biggest expansion of passenger rights in the history of the Department of Transportation. Last year, we had the lowest rate of cancellations in about a decade. We've been very tough on the airlines because, frankly, that's been necessary. The enforcement patterns and practices that we inherited were not enough to get airlines to step up and do what they need to do.
With President Biden dropping out of the presidential race, some have called on him to resign and not finish out his term and have accused the vice president and members of his cabinet of concealing his mental fitness. What have those conversations been like behind the scenes with you and fellow cabinet members?
The thing about Joe Biden is he's very good at his job. He made a decision, what must have been one of the toughest decisions ever made by a president, to lay aside the nomination and stop campaigning so that he could be 100% focused on his job for the remainder of his term. Anytime I have needed something from him as secretary, anytime I need to go to him as president, as boss, as leader of this administration, he has been there for the Department of Transportation.
You have confidence in his ability to serve as president?
Of course.
When's the last time there's been a full cabinet meeting?
I don't remember the date of the last cabinet meeting. They typically happen a few times a year. I imagine we probably will have one quite soon.
All the speculation and all the talk is you are under consideration as a vice presidential pick for Vice President Kamala Harris. Do you have any meetings scheduled with Vice President Harris between now and Monday?
I can't get into the campaign side of things, but what I will say is I'm really proud to work with her in this administration. It's been a historically effective administration, delivering the infrastructure package that the last administration promised but couldn't get done, overseeing record job growth, manufacturing comeback, and she's a big part of that.
So that's not a no.
Again, I'm just not going to get into the campaign side.
As secretary, this would have implications. Mm-hmm. If she asked you and said, Mr. Secretary, will you be my vice president? Would you step down as Secretary of Transportation?
Again, I don't want to get into the hypotheticals there. What I'll say is I love my job, and I'm going to work hard every day that I have this job to make sure we're meeting people's transportation needs.
President Biden now obviously not seeking re-election. So what does your future hold if VP does not work out at the end of this term?
One thing I've learned throughout my career is the best thing that you can do is focus on the job in front of you and then let the future start to reveal itself and resolve itself in due course. I've been humbled by being handed a job like this. I mean, we are working on everything from roads and bridges to ports and airports and rail and transit. We're delivering the biggest infrastructure investment since the Eisenhower years. That's enough to take about 110% of my time and talent.
Well, we'll see how this develops over the next couple of days. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg, Secretary, thank you for your time.
Thank you.